3 decimal places. So yes, the homework is telling you to use a calculator. Right, one thing I will tell you, that if it's not a perfect square like something over there, these will be decimals that go on for the length of your calculator. They actually go on forever, but they will take up the whole space on your calculator. Right, so they're going to tell you where to stop rounding. Right. So you're going to punch it in. The first one, square root of 248. Now, obviously, this is a good time for you to figure out how your square root button works in case you don't know. Test it. It's going to work one of the two ways. For some of you, you're going to press square root sign, then 248, and then equals. For some of you, it'll be the other way around. You'll do 248, then the square root sign, and then possibly equals. Right? Whichever way works is the one that's going to work. So, what else can I say? Square root of 248 is 15.748. All right, the next one says square root of 10. Now, we kind of have an idea of where the square root of 10 is. If we think about it like what we just did, the square root of 10 has got to be somewhere between the square root of 9 and the square root of 16, which equal 3 and 4. So the answer should be between 3 and 4, all right, which is actually what we'll study when we do the squeeze method next. All right, 3 and 4, it is indeed between 3 and 4. It's 3.162. All right, now the next two, notice they're the same numbers. Same numbers for the next two. The only difference is the negative sign. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, can I solve example 9?
No.
What? Yes, I can. The negative is outside. All right. So there, you're going to take the square root of 3965. The square root of 3965 is 62.968. Now, this negative on the outside is usually read opposite. Right, so they're looking for the opposite there. So it's technically negative 62.968. But that's not really a good question because remember, we've talked about all of these could be positive or negative. So technically, either way, either answer you right, you can get away with it for all of them. All right, example 10. Can example 10 be solved? No, example 10 cannot be solved. Again, the negative is under the square root. That's a no-no. Right? So that one for us right now is going to read no solution. Technically, that would be equal to 62.968 I. All right? I standing for imaginary number. Right? But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to go with no solution. All right, the last thing we have then is square roots with fractions. All right, now, square roots with fractions, as you know by now because you're tired of them, mathematicians love rules, all right, and this is no exception. All right, when you've got a square root, you're not allowed to have a fraction or a square root in the denominator. You can have a square root in the numerator at the top. They don't care about that. But for whatever reason, we're not allowed to have a square root in the denominator or the bottom. There's two ways that can be dealt with. Let's start with example 11. That's the first one. Example 11 says the square root of 10 over the square root of 16. Well, this one's easy to deal with because the square root of 16, as you see from the list over there, is perfect square root. The square root of 16 just equals 4. So all you got to do is simplify this into the square root of 10 over 4. That's all you got to do. Now, before I go on to the other one, right, I want you to know that these two things, why I wrote this here, these two things mean the exact same thing. Right? They can write the square root sign big over the whole fraction, or they can put a square root on the top and a square root on the bottom. Those mean the exact same thing. Sometimes people get confused by that, but they mean the exact same thing. All right, we'll go in here. Now the bottom one isn't so nice because if we look in the denominator, it says square root of 2. Well, if you reference the list, there is no square root of 2. Now what do we do? Whenever that happens, you just multiply the whole fraction, top and bottom, by whatever the denominator currently is. So, that being said, I'm going to multiply both the top and the bottom by the square root of 2. Right? The bottom was the square root of 8. I'd be multiplying everything by the square root of 8. The bottom was the square root of 1,507. I'd be multiplying by the square root of 1,507. Whatever. Right? They multiply just like regular numbers. So the top becomes the square root of 20. The bottom becomes the square root of 4. And look what happened. The square root of 4, well, we know the square root of 4 comes out as perfect 2. So this becomes the square root of 20 over 2, and you're set. That will work every single time the bottom isn't already a perfect square. Guaranteed to work every single time. Okay.